today's daily break video, I'm gonna talk about two things. The first one being how the business is stuck, and the second one being how am I going to pivot that, and basically following a couple of guidelines and pricing structures that will eventually make this agency that I have into a SaaS company in the long run. Now, for the past few weeks, I just have to be honest. I've been a bad entrepreneur. For the ones who don't know me, I am a solopreneur. And even though I've hired different types of employees in order to outsource some work, the fact is that I like looking at my own books. I just like having full understanding on not only about the numbers, but also on how the service is going, how the clients are essentially getting results, the feedback that I'm getting, and just basically being able to structure kind of a blueprint on where the business is going. And it's when I realized that throughout this time, I've been lacking a lot in terms of knowledge when it comes to offering different types of services to the prospects itself. And I even went through on the last daily break video that I'm gonna be changing directions in terms of business related. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because, in fact, the other day I was in a sales call with a client who was, I would say, not in the best situation itself, which got to show me that even though he was fully committed into actually giving it a try, he wasn't able to afford it due to essentially the lack of services or the lack of pricing options that I had. And then is when I realized that I was lacking not only in the sales process, but in the offer and the outreach system itself. Because people came with an idea and I was trying to sell them with a different one. And even though they made the same outcome, for the contractors itself didn't really cut it. And what I mean by that is that I'm not going to try to sell dreams to people who I don't think is not going to make it. And what I mean by that is that when you're trying to essentially sell a service, specifically selling clients to another business in the B2B industry itself, whenever I get asked the same question, which is, am I getting guaranteed results? By which I mean by that, am I getting guaranteed clients? My answer is always the same. We're going to give our 100% when it comes to finding the leads, qualifying them, and nurturing them with our own software. But at the end of the day, the only one who's going to be able to close that lead is yourself. So if you're not a great closer, you're not gonna close. And if you feel confident when it comes to meeting new people, showing them about your knowledge, showing them about what you can do in their homes, specifically on the general contractor industry, right? If you're okay with that, you're gonna close. But if you're not a great appointment setter itself, and you don't essentially know how to bring prospects in and how to call prospects and introduce yourself, you're just simply not gonna make it. And that's the simple truth. Yeah, you could blame me for being a bad sales rep and for essentially not trying to sell the dream, but I'm just honest. In fact, this is something that I learned from Paul Daly itself, in which even if you're selling a service or a product or whatever it may be honorable with yourself. What I want you to understand is that I'm providing a service, I'm providing time, I'm providing software, I'm providing websites, I'm providing funnels, I'm providing automations that essentially will go throughout, let's say, for the month or for 3 months itself. And if that contractor sucks at closing, it means that it's my fault, right? And so then is where I don't really, I would say, cut it in a way. And so I just been thinking through the entire week on how I could change this sales process and trying to make it as, I would say, low barrier as possible so that any level of contractor could come in and say, okay, I want to buy from your services, right? And as I was going through each and every single sales call, all I could think of was, this is messy. I was solving such a big problem for such a small contractor itself or such a small business that it didn't really make sense for them to say, okay, let's actually enroll, right? Because what happens when you're trying to solve a big problem, such as client acquisition, such as booking leads into a calendar, such as qualifying leads, such as building a website, such as building a funnel, such as optimizing every single day the ads. You're trying to sell this kind of super massive service for a small price, because this is something really hard that not a lot of people has actually the knowledge to do that, right? And so you cannot charge the prices that you want, because people are just not simply going to essentially trust you. And even though you have testimonials, even though you have proof that this system works, people are not just gonna simply throw your money at you. And I'll be honest, being a business owner, it's all about eating shit day in and day out. And so that is why I've been the entire week trying to redesign a new offer with a new type of service itself for the same niche, because at the end of the day, it's a niche that I like, general contracting services, and it's the niche that you can basically thrive in, right? And so without changing that environment, I was thinking, how can I basically tweak the service itself so that people from this industry can actually resonate with the offer and can actually resonate with the service. But before actually getting into what are the things that I'm going to change, I want to first talk about the current setup, because I don't really think that we have to change much in terms of the service itself, because it's currently working, right? And so we have a single service with multiple different pricing options. And what I mean by that is that you can either pay per deal, pay in full with a percentage discount, or just pay monthly fee itself, right? Then we have a big chunk of value to solve a big problem, which is client acquisition itself. At the end of the day, we're trying to solve, I would say, the biggest problem in any type of business itself, which giving them customers, right? If a business doesn't have customers, it's essentially dying, right? And it's a essentially hard disbelief in themselves, because they don't want to risk it all. Since you're solving such a big problem, it's a big investment in themselves. And if they don't really believe in, they're not going to pay. So what usually happens is that we end up not signing the client. And we kind of find ourselves in an unpredictable monthly recurring revenue, in which on 1 month you can basically be at the top of the mountain and saying, hey, I've made it, I've made a lot of money, and contractors are getting the service itself. But whenever it comes the next month, you're back at score zero, because you essentially have to make it all over again, and it just leaves you unhappy. But what if we could divide the service itself and sell them just as they need? And what I mean by that is that instead of selling the full price or the full service itself, just dividing the service into actually just selling the one thing that they can pay for and the one thing that they need, and then just upselling them. And if they need anything else, we can always just upsell them. And that is the main reason why I just said that, okay, I will be pivoting from agency to a SaaS business itself. Because with the SaaS business model, you can still have this single service, and just being specific with it, with multiple upselling products. And this kind of makes you just an upfront commission, which is a low barrier of entry, such as, okay, you just have to pay this amount of money and you're in, right? And from there, you can basically see if you want more services itself. And so they decide if they want more of this service or not. And what this essentially creates on the individual itself is a strong belief on succeeding, because they already trust you now, right? Because they just paid a little bit, you've shown that you are able to fulfill on that, so they are willing to essentially give you more money. Now, the execution part is fairly simple. Since we're selling services such as websites, leads, clients, appointments, whatever the service may be, the execution part should always be the most basic and simplest part ever, right? Examples like this could be a free design of the website, which is a low barrier of entry. And at the end of the day, you're providing something valuable for the business owner that could potentially be a customer of yourself, because he's basically seeing what you're able to do. Then you just transition into a demo call itself, and you just show them the design that you basically pitched on them, the results that you've got from other clients, and then just providing a great offer itself in order to sell the service and just collect an upfront payment for the future investment that you're going to make on yourself, right? Now, you want to upsell on the backend. And what I mean by that is that lead magnets, such as building them offers, the SEO in order to make them better seen on Google, automations, review collections, paid ads. And so you can subdivide every single service that you have on the agency in order for them to just picking the one that works for them the most, and both of you just being happy because they're paying you and they're just getting the results that they're wanting to. Now, in terms of the outreach, how are we going to reach those business owners in order to allow ourselves to pitch on them? So the first one is paid ads itself, because it's not only the one that will essentially just give you the fastest feedback itself, but since in myself, I'm good and I'm okay by running paid ads, which doesn't really require a big budget to get it going. You can just start going and trying to pitch an offer and see if it resonates with an audience. But also we can just run cold messaging, which allows you to do a high volume and it's low budget. So essentially all of us can just go through there. Now with this tiny presentation you've just seen, it is more or less the blueprint that I'm going to follow in order to essentially grow the business itself, because at the end of the day it's something low barrier that anyone can just try it out, and from there just see if you're a great man or not. And if people just trust you, they're just gonna essentially try it out, and if not, they can always go back, right? So at the end of the day, it's about upselling things and trying to get that monthly recurring revenue in terms of not only, for example, the subscription of the service itself, but also if they want to add more things, this price fee is going to essentially increase, right? So that is essentially the business model and essentially the comparison between an agency and a SaaS company itself, and how am I going to pivot into SaaS company eventually in the near future itself. And once I get this going, I'm just going to be essentially just keep uploading yourself. And so with that being said, this was today's second episode of Daily Break. If you're enjoying it so far, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and even leave a comment if you'd ask me any questions. I'm gonna leave my Instagram down below if you want to ask me anything whatsoever. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.